Continuing with the Undertakers, this is the third part of this story from the Jungle Books. Basically, it's a crocodile, it's a vulture, it's a jackal, all talking on the bank of a river. Not very exciting so far. We're going to pick up with a story that the vulture, who is called the Adjunct, is telling. From the insides of this boat, they were taking out great pieces of white stuff, which in a little while turned to water. Much split off and fell about on the shore, and the rest they swiftly put into a house with thick walls. But a boatman, who laughed, took a piece, no larger than a small dog, and threw it at me. All my people, swallow without reflection, and that piece I swallowed, as is our custom. Immediately I was afflicted with an excessive cold, which, beginning in my crop, ran down to the extreme end of my toes, and deprived me even of speech, while the boatman laughed at me. Never have I felt such cold. I danced in my grief and amazement till I could recover my breath, and then I danced and cried out against the falseness of this world. And the boatmen derided me till they fell down. The chief wonder of this matter, setting aside that marvelous coldness, was that there was nothing at all in my crop when I had finished my lamenting. The Adjunct had done his very best to describe his feelings after swallowing a 7-pound lump of Wentham lake ice off an American ice ship in the days before Calcutta made her ice by machinery. But as he did not know what ice was, and as the mugger and the jackal knew rather less, the tale missed fire. "Anything," said the mugger, shutting his left eye. "Again, anything is possible that comes out of a boat thrice the size of Mugger Gotch. My village is not a small one." There was a whistle overheard on the bridge, and the Delhi mail slid across, all the carriages gleaming with light, and the shadows faithfully following along the river. It clanked away into the dark again, but the mugger and the jackal were so well used to it that they never turned their heads. "Is there anything less wonderful than a boat thrice the size of Mugger Gott?" said the bird, looking up. "I saw that built, child. Stone by stone I saw the bridge piers rise, and when the men fell off, they were wondrous sure-footed for the most part, but when they fell, I was ready. After the first pier was made, they never thought to look downstream for the body to burn. There again I saved much trouble. There was nothing strange in the building of the bridge," said the mugger. "But that which goes across pulling the roofed carts, that is strange," the Adjunct repeated. "It is, past any doubt, a new breed of bullock. Some day it will not be able to keep its foothold up yonder, and will fall as the men did. The old mugger will then be ready." The jackal looked at the Adjunct, and the Adjunct looked at the jackal. If there was one thing they were more certain of than any other, it was that the engine was everything in the wide world except a bullock. The jackal had watched it time and again from the aloe hedges by the side of the line, and the Adjunct had seen engines since the first locomotive ran in India, but the mugger had only looked up at the thing from below, where the brass dome seemed rather like a bullock's hump. Yes, a new kind of bullock," the mugger repeated ponderously to make himself quite sure in his own mind. Certainly it is a bullock," said the jackal. "And again it might be," began the mugger pettishly. "Certainly, most certainly," said the jackal, without waiting for the other to finish. "What?" said the mugger angrily, for he could feel that the others knew more than he did. "What might it be? I never finished my words. You said it was a bullock." "It is anything the protector of the poor pleases. I am his servant, not the servant of the thing that crosses the river." Whatever it is white-face work," said the Adjunct. "Whatever it is white-face work," said the Adjunct. "And for my own part, I would not lie out upon a place so near it as this bar." "You do not know the English as I do," said the mugger. "There was a white-face here when the bridge was built, and he would take a vote in the evenings and shuffle with his feet on the bottom boards and whisper, 'Is he here? Is he there?' Bring me my gun. I could hear him before I could see him. Each sound that he made, creaking and puffing and rattling his gun up and down the river as surely as I had picked up one of his workmen, and thus saved great expense in wood for the burning, so surely would he come down to the ghat, and shout in a loud voice that he would hunt me and rid the river of me, the mugger of Mugger Ghat. Me, children! I have swum under the bottom of his boat for hour after hour, and heard him fire his gun at logs, and when I was well sure he was wearied, I have risen by his side and snapped my jaws in his face. When the bridge was finished, he went away. All the English hunt in that fashion, except when they are hunted. "Who hunts the white faces?" yapped the jackal excitedly. "No one now, but I have hunted them in my time." "I remember a little of that hunting. I was young then," said the adjunct, clattering his beak significantly. "I was well established here, my village being builded for the third time, as I remember, when my cousin, the Gavail, brought me word of rich waters above Benares. At first I would not go, for my cousin, who is a fish-eater, does not always know the good from the bad, but I heard my people talking in the evenings, and what they said made me certain." "What did they say?" the jackal asked. "They said enough to make me, the mugger of Mugger Ghat, leave the water and take to my feet. I went by night, using the littlest streams as they served me, but it was the beginning of the hot weather, and all streams were low. I crossed dusty roads, I went through tall grass, I climbed hills in the moonlight, even rocks did I climb, children, consider this well. I crossed the tail of Sirhind, the waterless, before I could find a set of little rivers that flow Gungaward. I was a month's journey from my own people, and the river that I knew, that was very marvelous." "What food on the way?" said the jackal, who kept his soul in his little stomach, and was not a bit impressed by the mugger's land travels. "That which I could find, cousin," said the mugger slowly, dragging each word. "Now you do not call a man cousin in India, unless you think he can establish some kind of blood relationship, and as it is only in old fairy tales that the mugger ever marries a jackal, the jackal knew for what reason he had been suddenly lifted into the mugger's family circle. If they had been alone, he would not have cared, but the adjunct's eyes twinkled with mirth at the ugly jest. "Assuredly, father, I might have known," said the jackal. "A mugger does not care to be called the father of jackals." And the mugger of Mugger Ghat said as much, and a great deal more, which there is no use in repeating here. "The protector of the poor has claimed kinship. How can I remember the precise degree? Moreover, we eat the same food. He has said it," was the jackal's reply. That made matters rather worse, for what the jackal hinted at was that the mugger must have eaten his food on the land march fresh every day, instead of keeping it by him till it was in fit and proper condition, as every self-respecting mugger and most wild beasts do when they can. Indeed, one of the worst terms of contempt along the riverbed is eater of fresh meat. It is nearly as bad as calling a man a cannibal. "That food was eaten 30 seconds ago," said the adjunct quietly. "If we talk for 30 seasons more—" "Oh, that food was eaten 30 seasons ago," said the adjunct quietly. "If we talk for 30 seasons more, it will never come back. Tell us now what happened when the good waters were reached, after thy most wonderful land journey. If we listened to the howling of every jackal, the business of the town would stop, as the saying is." The mugger must have been grateful for the interruption, because he went on with a rush. "By the right and left of the Gunga, when I came there, never did I see such waters." "Were they better, then, than the big flood of last season?" said the jackal. "Better? That flood was no more than comes every 5 years. A houndful of drowned strangers, some chickens, and a dead bullock in muddy water with cross currents. But the season I think of, the river was low, smooth, and even, as the Gavail had warned me, the dead English came down, touching each other. I got my girth in that season, my girth and my depth, from Agra by Etowah, and the broad waters by Allahabad. Oh, the eddy that sat under the walls of the fort at Allahabad, said the adjunct. They came in there like widgeon to the reeds, and round they swung thus. He went off into his horrible dance again, while the jackal looked on enviously. He naturally could not remember the terrible year of the mutiny they were talking about. The mugger continued, Yes, by Allahabad, one day, still in the slack water, and let 20 go by to pick one, and above all the English were not cumbered with jewelry and nose rings and anklets as my women are nowadays. To delight in ornaments is to end with a rope for a necklace, as the saying is. All the muggers of that river grew fat then, but it was my fate to be fatter than them all. The news was that the English were being hunted into the rivers, and by the right and left of Gunga we believed it was true. So far as I went south I believed it to be true, and I went downstream beyond Monger and the tombs that look over the river. I know that place, said the adjunct. Since those days, Monger is a lost city. Very few live there now. Thereafter I worked upstream very slowly and lazily, and a little above Monger there came down a boat full of white faces, alive. They were, as I remember, women lying under a cloth spread over sticks and crying aloud. Women lying under a cloth spread over sticks and crying aloud. There was never a gun fired at us. The watchers of the fords in those days, all the guns were busy elsewhere. We could hear them day and night inland, coming and going as the wind shifted. I rose up full before the boat, because I had never seen white faces alive, though I knew them well otherwise. A naked white child kneeled by the side of the boat, and stooping over, must needs try to trail his hands in the river. It is a pretty thing to see how a child loves running water. I had fed that day, but there was yet a little unfilled space within me. Still, it was for sport, and not for food, that I rose at the child's hands. They were so clear a mark that I did not even look when I closed, but they were so small that though my jaws rang true, I am sure of that, the child drew them up swiftly unhurt. They must have passed between tooth and tooth, those small white hands. I should have caught him crosswise at the elbows, but, as I said, it was only for sport and desire to see new things that I rose at all. They cried out one after another in the boat, and presently I rose again to watch them. The boat was too heavy to push over. They were only women, but he who trusts a woman will walk on duckweed in a pool, as the saying is, and by the right and left of Gunga that is truth. Once a woman gave me some dried skin from a fish, said the jackal. I had hoped to get her baby, but horse food is better than the kick of a horse, as the saying is. What did thy woman do? She fired at me with a short gun of the kind I have never seen before or since, 5 times one after another. The mugger must have met with an old-time revolver, and I stayed open-mouthed and gaping, my head in the smoke. Never did I see such a thing, 5 times as swiftly as I waved my tail, thus. The jackal, who had been growing more and more interested in the story, had just time to leap back as the huge tail swung by like a scythe. Not before the 5th shot, said the mugger, as though he had never dreamed of stunning one of his listeners. Not before the 5th shot did I sink, and I rose in time to hear a boatman telling all those white women that I was most certainly dead. One bullet had gone under a neck-plate of mine. I know not if it is still there, for the reason I cannot turn my head. Look and see, child. It will show that my tale is true. I? Said the jackal. Shall I, an eater of old shoes, a bone-cracker, presume to doubt the word of the envy of the river? May my tail be bitten off by blind puppies, if the shadow of such a thought had crossed my humble mind. The protector of the poor has condescended to inform me, his slave, that once in his life he has been wounded by a woman. That is sufficient, and I will tell the tale to all my children, asking for no proof. And there we will pause.